I stole it.
For me.
Harper had my child. It was just their age. She asked if we had.
We're ready. I'll call the meeting to order at 5:15. Take the roll, please.
Councilmember Cole?
Here.
Councilmember Weir?
Here.
Councilmember Wong?
Here.
Councilmember Norby?
Here.
Mayor Mundy?
Here. Can I get a motion to adopt the agenda, please?
So moved.
So move, Councilmember Cole.
Second.
Second, Councilmember Wong. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Our topics.
Thank you, Mayor. We had two topics tonight. First up is Ramsey County 2024 McKnight Road Mill and Overlay Project. We have engineer Morgan Dolly here to discuss.
Thank you, Brian. Mr. Mayor, members of the council, this item is on your regular city council meeting agenda for tonight, and so the intent here from myself and in conversation with the city manager, we just thought we'd maybe dedicate 5 or 10 minutes just for a quick overview. But ultimately, we do have members of Ramsey County Public Works staff coming to the regular meeting to do a little bit more in-depth presentation, certainly answer questions of the city council that might have at that time direct from their standpoint. But in summary here, as we just describe what's going on here, the ultimate thing that Ramsey County is going to be asking the city council for is for action to make a determination on no parking along McKnight Road. So the impetus for this discussion is Ramsey County is planning overlay improvements from 11th Avenue all the way up to County Road D in this construction season, so in 2024. They've been planning this for some time. You may recall that the city of North St. Paul initiated water main improvements last year. The intent of that was to fix some of our old aging water main before Ramsey County actually got to this point where they're going to be putting some investment of public dollars into the pavement surface on McKnight Road. And McKnight Road is a Ramsey County roadway, so they own the road, they maintain the road. However, the city, by ordinance, does have control over parking even on county roads, and so that's why they're coming to the city council with some questions to consider here. As they started looking at the replacement of the pavement, that's certainly an opportunity, whether it's a city project or a county project, to look at different things with restriping the road, reconfiguring the road. And currently, McKnight Road between 11th Avenue and about 17th Avenue, approximately, is a 4-lane, divided in some sections and undivided in other sections. Now, Ramsey County has had on a handful of projects over the years some success in converting some of those 4-lane roads to a 3-lane configuration. It's called a 4 to 3-lane conversion, which is it's something that from an engineering standpoint or a road authority standpoint is considered when you have the right mixture of turning traffic levels and also traffic volumes in general on the road. They have seen some success in terms of looking at the data before and after they've done the conversion on some of their projects from 4-lane to 3-lane. Less accidents in some cases, less congestion, I guess, delays in certain situations. And they feel that it's a more efficient use of the asphalt pavement. Also allows some potential opportunities for multimodal improvements, things like including shoulders where there were not shoulders before, which provides some safety benefits in some situations, dedicated bike lanes for other uses besides just cars within the roadway. So they took it upon themselves, their staff, their engineering staff did evaluate different things with respect to what they could do. And they've come up with a couple different alternatives to discuss with the city council. And the information is in your packet, so I don't want to go into a deep dive here, but generally what they're proposing to do between, basically for the whole corridor, that they're going to be doing an overlay project from 11th Avenue all the way up past the border with Maplewood into Maplewood up to County Road D, is to affect that 3-lane conversion. So it'd be, instead of 4 lanes in some sections, or in other sections, 2 lanes with shoulders, it would be 2 lanes with a shared center left turn lane. So what that does is if somebody's turning left, people can go around them. They don't have to hold up traffic necessarily. But then also, there's enough road width there without widening the road to be able to provide some shoulder treatments. The city of Maplewood has stated that they're in support, and up and down Maplewood, they don't have any existing parking to deal with, but so they have supported Ramsey County's wishes to potentially put in a bike lane. So north of Beam Avenue, which is the border between Maplewood, on this project, there will be dedicated bike lanes as per Maplewood's wishes. At least that's my understanding in talking with their folks. And then what we have south of Beam Avenue is an interesting situation where a short piece between Mohawk Road and 17th Avenue is actually there's residential properties there that have existed there since the 1960s that front on McKnight Road, which is fairly uncommon. Usually on some of these busier county roads or collector roads, they might be side yards and not necessarily front yards with driveways for folks. But it does happen in some situations. And they have historically, since approximately 1965, they have had on-street parking in front of their homes. Now, upon city staff, my encouragement of Ramsey County staff, we thought it was important that they hold a public meeting, they have an open house, they invite residents from the area, they get feedback. They did go through that process. I did attend the meeting. I did hear very loud and clear from the residents that have lived there, and there's 1 or 2 people that have actually lived there since 1965, which was the last time the county did improvements on that roadway. And it was communicated to me that it was a very big deal for those residents to fight for that parking at that time. The city council did consider a request, just like we're going to consider at the regular meeting here. And the parking was retained at that time, 1965, long time ago, right? So hearing that, I think the county did their due diligence in providing 2 different options for the city of North St. Paul to consider. So one of them is dedicated bike lanes up and down all the way from 11th Avenue to the end of the project. The other one kind of honors this historical legacy of on-street parking between Mohawk and 17th Avenue and repurposes that shoulder to a multi-use shoulder so it can be used by bikes. It can also be maintained as for on-street parking for that short 2-block area there. And it also maintains some consistency with their intent to provide a bikeable shoulder. So it's in some areas, and this is not uncommon throughout Ramsey County. It also is in North St. Paul in 2015 or 16, they overlaid 7th Avenue west of McKnight Road. Same thing, they came to address the city council. The city council at that time said that they would like to maintain on-street parking, and so they still striped it. It's still a bikeable shoulder, but it still maintains on-street parking. So similar situation here. 2 options, again, they did discuss that publicly. The information in your regular meeting packet has copies of comment cards. Folks that live both on McKnight Road and also just in the neighborhood that were interested in the project. There's a lot of support for the project. Certainly the pavement has kind of lived its life and people would like to see the road improved. General support for the idea of 4 to 3 lane conversion. But I thought it would be a good just kind of precursor to just kind of on a high level lay out those 2 options for you all answer any questions that I can answer ahead of time and not take too much time from the chief in terms of his item, which is probably much more important than this one. So with that, I'll stand for any questions that the council might have. That, again, kind of as an early kind of first look at this, the two options, what the county might be doing as an end item here in terms of the action during the regular meeting. There's two different resolutions already prepared either way, whichever way the city council wants to go with this parking, whether it's dedicated bike lanes or whether it's the multi-use shoulder. And so that's the action item during the regular meeting. For this time, at this time, during the workshop, it's simply discussion only. So if there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer those at this time.
Any questions, anyone?
Yeah, I have a question. So you discussed that there was a large segment that was forward-facing. Do you know what the distance is roughly from Mohawk to, I think it's Shawnee Drive?
It's, without measuring it, it's going to be approximately 1,000 feet. It's going to be between 900 and 1,200 feet, so it's going to be about that. But it's about a 2-block stretch.
And so thinking about parking spaces, what would that equate to?
Now you're really going to put me on the spot from a
Sorry.
math standpoint. So
Roughly.
it's not 100% because there are some lane shifts and developments there, I guess. So you can't park all, if you live there, you can't park all the way to the curb right now. A parking stall is approximately 20 feet. The lot widths that are there are about, I think, 60 feet wide. So I think, not including the driveway, right? I think that on-street parking per household is going to be between 1 and 2 parking stalls for those homes that in front of there. And there's approximately 30 to 35 homes.
Are these all single-family homes?
To my knowledge, yes, they all are. Some may be rentals. I don't have the data on that. It was discussed at the open house. There is one group home that operates, and there was some discussion amongst the neighbors. They all are in support of the operation of the group home. They're good neighbors, but there are cars on a daily basis, 1 or 2 or 3 cars that park on that group home, and that group home is one of the residential properties that fronts on McKnight. So there was some concern by the neighbors. There wasn't a representative from the group home there that I met, but there was some concern in terms of if the parking is taken away, how would they be able to continue their operations, right? There may not be enough driveway length or width for more than 1 or 2 cars, and at times it was reported to me that there might be more than that on a regular basis for that operation of the group home.
On projects like this, when they're being vetted, are they ran past the police department and fire department to see if they have any recommendations one way or the other?
I can't say if they contacted the police department. I'm guessing not. There was that open house, but I don't know if you guys got a specific invitation.
Not that I recall on this specific item.
We do know that Maplewood Fire uses 17th North on McKnight as access to the northern part of Maplewood. They come down County Road C/17th and turn north up there, so. Which currently is 1 lane each direction with parking.
Right, I can't speak from an emergency services perspective, but the concept or idea of having a shared center left turn lane to eliminate holdups behind someone that might be turning left, especially in those sections of the road that are currently just 2 lanes. I mean, that would provide more opportunity, I guess, for emergency response without having to, jump the curb or something if there is some situation that's being, that's blocking both lanes, both oncoming traffic and, maybe queued up traffic that is in the direction of travel for emergency services.
Well, I also, down when you go on the other side of town, south going, from South Avenue by the Holiday going, south on McKnight, they're at 3 now, where they have and that's, I think, worked out really well. I like the idea of having the third in the middle because people get locked and then they try pulling out in front of each other, so safety-wise, I can, that's a good deal, I think, for us. It's just the parking now that I think 3 lanes would help the cause for flow.
And I just touched on it briefly, and maybe the Ramsey County staff can give more specific examples, but their first 4 to 3 lane conversion was maybe about 4 or 5 years ago, and they were a little concerned if the data would really support it, and they have been very pleased with the outcome of it in terms of traffic operations and accident data, I guess, that they've been collecting from their standpoint, not local police, but from their standpoint. We are at 15 minutes, so I don't want to take up any more of the chief's time, but certainly, again, there's no need for action at this time, just kind of a high-level primer for you folks before the regular meeting agenda item where there would be resolutions to consider for the on-street parking for either of the 2 scenarios. And Ramsey County is perfectly fine with either one. They're not pushing one over the other. They wanted to create some flexibility for local consideration, I guess, from the city standpoint, knowing that this was a kind of a unique situation on a county road to take into consideration, so.
As a city engineer, do you have any, as far as, concerns? Is, having that shared with parking and biking and everything else? Is there anything that you could add to it?
From my standpoint, and I did mention this in my memo, I mean, my recommendation is to maintain the parking. I do think that there's the ability within a multi-use shoulder, and also given the fact that one of the data points that the county has provided is parking counts, so it's fairly lightly parked through that area. That's a handful of cars a day. It's not unlike, for example, 7th Avenue west of McKnight Road in North St. Paul, which is on Ramsey County's bike facility map. I'm not aware of any issues or problems that have happened there with bikers versus, the occasional parked car. So I think weighing all of the factors and considering all of the interests, I think it's a reasonable recommendation to consider maintaining the parking. And so that's where I stand. Also having talked to several residents out there. And knowing that there is some system continuity, it's only a short piece. So, moving north, if you're a bicyclist, south, other areas, there is certainly the opportunity to provide that dedicated bike lane where it can be, where it fits and where it's not a significant change from a parking restriction standpoint, as it's been sitting for the last 60 years approximately.
Thank you.
All right. Next topic, item B, consider approving joint powers agreement and authorize entering into a partnership with the state of Minnesota BCA Violent Crime Reduction Unit. You guys will be voting on that in the council meeting. We have 2 gentlemen from BCA. We'll turn it over to Chief Babenroth to start us off.
Thank you. Good evening, Mr. Mayor and members of the council. Very glad to be here tonight to discuss this significant and collaborative opportunity that will absolutely enhance public safety in North St. Paul and throughout Minnesota. And we're very fortunate to have been selected to participate in this. Just a brief background on how we got to be in this position to be able to engage in this opportunity. Violent crime in Minnesota, especially within the 7-county metro area, has increased in recent years. Aggravated assault, robbery, rape, murder, all increased from 2020 to 2021. In 2018 and 2019 combined, there was 24,777 violent crimes reported in Minnesota. Fast forward to 2021 and 2022 combined, there was 33,750 violent crimes reported in Minnesota. So comparing those two sets of years, this was an increase of almost 9,000 violent crimes, or 36.22%. And we are no different in North St. Paul from what we have experienced, unfortunately. To expand on this a little bit, in January of this year, we had 3 stabbing victims from domestic incidents, 1 victim brought to near death. In December of '23, our officers arrested a man for pointing a gun and threatening to kill several people. Come to find out, this gun had an auto sear and did not have a serial number. In June of '23, we had a homicide where we recovered approximately 20 firearms and a firearms manufacturing operation. This past Friday, a judge issued guilty verdicts on all charges that we brought against a person responsible for killing Shayna Daniels in North St. Paul on August 25th, 2022. In November of '22, we had 2 people stabbed numerous times, where 1 unfortunately died and a 3rd person was shot and killed. Fall of '21, our officers had to fight to get a loaded gun from a student in North High School. We had community members somehow dodge being struck by 17 rounds shot at them for trying to keep their vehicle from being broken into. In June of 2021, a person was shot and paralyzed in an apartment building in North St. Paul. We're finding meth, fentanyl, firearms in vehicles and on people throughout North St. Paul. And we've also assisted a lot of other agencies who have came to town with search warrants, actively looking for dangerous and violent criminals in the recent months and years. So in response to these growing violent crime trends, in 2023, the Minnesota legislature approved funding for a violent crime reduction support initiative within the Minnesota Bureau of Criminal Apprehension and the Minnesota Department of Public Safety to make an information-driven, collaborative team effort to stop violence and improve public safety in our communities. And I'm very grateful to have here with us today 2 very highly regarded leaders in law enforcement with the Minnesota Bureau of Criminal Apprehension, Deputy Superintendent Scott Mueller and Special Agent in Charge Jake May. Deputy Superintendent Mueller heads the BCA's investigative services, which includes predatory crimes, narcotics, homicide, use of deadly force, conflict investigations, as well as the Minnesota Fusion Center, the Financial Crimes Task Force, and Internet Crimes Against Children Task Force. Special Agent in Charge May has worked in the Special Investigations Unit and the BCA's Emergency Response Team. He's also worked as a team leader in the Drug Enforcement Administration in Minneapolis. Recently, Special Agent in Charge May was tasked with initiating and operating a unit which has helped to arrest over 1,200 violent criminals in the Twin Cities area, and he will now lead the Violent Crime Reduction Unit. So I will turn it over to Superintendent Mueller and Special Agent in Charge May, who will further discuss this new effort to reduce violent crime.
Welcome.
Mayor, council members, Mr. Frandl and Chief, I appreciate you having us here tonight. I have just a simple goal of giving you information about our unit, what we're looking to do, and kind of where that spawned from a year to a year and a half ago to where we are today. If you give me just a quick second to get this up and going. Hopefully this is coming across for you. What you're looking at here is a focused enforcement detail, and I'm kind of starting halfway through my presentation just to go back to the beginning. This right here is what we're looking to do really across the state of Minnesota, but very specifically within the 7-county metro area. A focused enforcement detail is very specifically not just a saturation detail, but very focused on specific people we're looking for or specific crimes that we're looking for. Over the last year and a half, we all know that Minneapolis has been in kind of a rough way when it comes to responding to crime. I think we can all agree on that. The BCA was asked to come in and assist them with their violent crime. We sent over 10% of the BCA's investigative staff to Minneapolis with a simple goal of just disrupting violent crime. I actually sat down with this unit and expressed to them, under no circumstances are you going to go after narcotics. I want you to go after shootings, I want you to go after homicides, and I want you to go after guns. It was about 6 months later that the group sat me down and said, sorry, boss, there is literally no way we can go after any one of those three without a direct correlation to fentanyl and other drugs that you're seeing both in North St. Paul and across the state. The pictures that I'm showing here are in no means trophy photographs by any means, but just simply a very quick snapshot of the stuff that we're seeing on a daily basis. And I'll give you some of the numbers that we've seen over the last year as well. Like I said,
Excuse me one second. Can we get the screen up here so we can see? I'm sorry to interrupt you, but it's hard to get a glare off of the lights. Thank you. Sorry about that.
sure, not a problem. A good majority of the narcotics that we're seeing are the same thing that we're seeing across the state. Fentanyl being by far the biggest. Virtually every person that we are arresting related to a shooting, a homicide, or some sort of gun charge is carrying fentanyl with them and an amount of distribution levels. For the last year and a half, we've had just our agency. We have also had the city of Fridley, about 6 months into this operation, approach us saying, we would like to put a person on this unit as well. This was just a BCA unit to start with. Okay. And we took this person from Fridley on. When we initially sat down with the chief of Fridley, he approached us wanting to start this partnership. We started talking about what are the individual benefits of just Fridley, since we're working metro-wide within the 7-county metro area by and large, although we do travel to different parts of Minnesota depending on where the crime and the guns and drugs are moving. But by and large, like I said, it's within that 7-county metro area. What he quickly learned is the one person that they put on the unit, it was a force multiplier by a dozen people that they had there. In other words, 2 weeks later, they had a drive-by shooting in Fridley, and it was simply one phone call to the person that they had assigned to this team. That person actually wasn't even with the team. They were out of town at the time, but they called back to the team. We had a dozen agents within that city, and I think it was within about 48 hours that the person that did the shooting was apprehended. So not only just a force multiplier, but it brings with it the rest of what this violent crime mask was all about. In 2023, when we originally went to the legislature, we looked at kind of a three-pronged approach. One being information. We have to have better information in law enforcement to be able to go after the people that are truly committing these crimes, whether it's individuals or organizations. Part of our legislative request is just that. We are looking at information, everything from incarceration information to information for people that have recently been arrested, that have previous convictions elsewhere, and specifically are committing crimes right now. How do those tie together? Well, in a couple of different ways, which includes the second section of our legislative request, which is our laboratory request. So how do you tie somebody that does a shooting in North St. Paul to somebody that does a shooting in Minneapolis to somebody that does a shooting in another part of the state of Minnesota when you don't have a gun? Well, the first step is to collect cartridge casings at a scene, process those cartridge casings through our NIBIN system at the BCA, along with fingerprints and DNA as well. If you're not familiar with the NIBIN system, that's a National Integrated Ballistics Information Network. Basically, it's a database of cartridge cases and marks specifically on cartridge cases that correlate to guns across the country. Therefore, when you do find a gun, Now you can start tying that gun to different shootings, different crimes really across the country. As soon as you start putting that information along with E-Trace, in other words, tracing back where the gun was bought and sold from, you start coming up and developing suspects or persons of interest. Moving on from that is, like I started with, is our enforcement team. So working with our laboratory, our information group that's coming up with the people that are doing these shootings, now we task our enforcement group with going out and finding them. How do we do that? Well, through a lot of different areas. I'm not going to get into very specific strategies that we have, just kind of overarching strategies. We're doing proactive drug investigations as long as they have a homicide, shooting, or gun nexus to them. We are looking at auto theft conspiracies, not just simply auto thefts. I think we can chase auto thefts all day long with 3 times the amount of people in the metro area right now, but we're looking at groups of people that are stealing dozens and dozens of cars. There's a Ramsey County team and a Minneapolis team that are both actively working auto thefts. This team is to supplement some of the work that they're doing when it comes to large conspiracy-type groups. Reactive shooting investigations, whether you're talking about just your drive-by shooting where nobody was hit, all the way up to a homicide and everything in between. We are not going to specifically peel off cases from agencies, but we're going to work in conjunction with those agencies. In other words, the homicide that occurred here attempted homicide that occurred here several weeks ago, this would be a team that would come in and supplement both investigations in North St. Paul and BCA homicide that would be working side by side together. What does this team look like? We're going to have a SAC May that's here with me today, has been tasked with leading this group. He has a long history of leading both violent crime and narcotics groups in the state of Minnesota. We have 2 ASACs that'll be tasked with kind of East and West Metro, although they'll all be housed together in one location. 7 agents on one team, another 7 agents on the other team. So the BCA, we are going to put in 14 agents into this group. We have 12 individual agencies that are looking to put a task force member on this team. Along with that, because we know that in an enforcement group, cops can't do everything. We have civilian support staff that are literally embedded into this group as well. Both criminal intelligence analysts to focus the cases in on very specific organizations and individuals. And then we also have prime victim advocates that we are in the process of hiring that will be embedded into the group as well to be able to get services to the people that we need to get services to for the cases that we're working as well. Just some of the real high-level stuff that we do to either develop persons of interest, suspects, or how we work through cases. The BCA, as the chief touched on, has a variety of other resources at its disposal. A financial crimes task force, a human trafficking task force, our narcotics task force, a homicide unit, a predatory crimes unit, a force investigative unit. We have a lot of different resources just within investigation that will be supplementing this team as well. In other words, if this team is working in, say, Oakdale, for example, and they arrest an individual for buying and selling firearms, and they realize that that person is also buying and selling individuals, in other words, human trafficking, we have a team that's going to come in and marry up with that violent crime team to work those cases as well. As far as some of the technology that we have, obviously that technology at the BCA will support this team as well. Everything from social media and cell phone exploitation to other things. This right here is the slide that I'm going to end on and kind of open it up for questions and specifically talk about either where this unit is going to be located, how are they going to get their cases. I know you have a lot of questions similar to those. This right here, this is 12 people in 13 months. I appreciate the time. Like I said, I know you'll have a bunch of questions. I tried to address some I'd like to elicit from you. And I'll start it off for you. The location. We have are working with the city of Maplewood to take over one of the city-owned buildings in Maplewood for this violent crime enforcement unit.
Thank you very much. Open to questions?
Thank you for your presentation. I have a question. Is it North Maplewood or South Maplewood?
For the location,
Yeah,
South Maplewood.
thank you. It seems that you also have a proactive and a reactive kind of approach. With the amount of crime, how does that break down in terms of percentage of time invested in proactive versus reactive or reactive?
Really both. One of my expectations is the task force members on the team, not the BC agents, but the task force members on the team. That is really the information that's going to feed a lot of the team. In other words, the chief calls and says to either their person they have on the task force or the supervisors of the task force, here's what we had happen in North St. Paul last night. We need help with X. Or this just happened 5 minutes ago, we need help with Y. So this would be local agencies feeding the task force cases. This task force is going to be large enough to be able to do its own proactive work as well. How that fluctuates, it really depends. I anticipate at the beginning of it, probably a lot more proactive work, and then having it even out as that team gets comfortable and those cities get comfortable feeding cases to this group as well. This is a group, much like the rest of our groups at the BCA, this is a partnership group. This isn't the BCA coming in and taking a case and walking away with it. This is really coming alongside either the city or the county that is going to have somebody on this task force as well. There are cities and counties we know, whether it's within the 7-county metro area or across Minnesota, that don't have the breadth to be able to put somebody on this team. We're not going to overlook those jurisdictions as well. I have, in the last 2 weeks, had several people on this group up in Red Lake, helping them with a couple of drive-by shootings. If you don't know, there is kind of a direct pipeline of criminal activity between the metro area here to other parts of Minnesota, so we do help them out from time to time. This is going to be a statewide team. Having said that, we know just by the population and the crime data that's out there, the vast majority of that is here within that 7-county metro area.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for your presentation. I really appreciate all that you do. Am I correct in that you would have to get involvement from other departments if this goes across state lines?
Yes and no. We have about 3/4 to half of this team that will be federally deputized as well. We already have the BC agents that will be on this team that will be federally deputized, and we'll be probably moving down the road of that with our, or I should say, for our task force members as well. That gives us a little bit more breadth, both in surrounding states and across the country. Yeah, I guess one other thing that I should touch base on too is just how the BCA is set up. We have 13 field offices and regional offices across the state of Minnesota, from Roseau down to the Iowa border and kind of everywhere in between. One of the nice things about the BCA creating a task force like this is we are already set up across Minnesota to be able to reach out and have other agents in other areas do things for, whether it's the Human Trafficking Task Force or this team itself. In other words, if somebody needs to be interviewed in Duluth, rather than sending 3 or 4 people up to Duluth, these people on this task force and agents can pick up the phone, call our Duluth field office and say, we need somebody interviewed, and saves a lot of travel time and things like that.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Oh, Nolan?
Oh, yeah, just kind of,
Okay,
you
that's it.
know, Just wondering why North St. Paul?
That's a good question. I would ask the same. Wonderful question. Here's what I would tell you. I started my law enforcement career in the city of White Bear Lake for the first 10 years of my life. This is a partnership agency, meaning the city of North St. Paul. I worked a lot of nights in partnership with this city. We looked for partners across that 7-county metro area that the BCA has historically partnered with and have had great relationships and good outcomes from those partnerships. Having said that, moving on to just the crime data, we looked at crime data per capita as well. So when you look at very specific cities, there are cities that have a really high crime per capita, and then violent crime per capita, and then you also have cities that maybe have a little bit less than that, but are what I consider pass-through cities to some degree. White Bear Lake is sometimes considered a pass-through city. In other words, we didn't have a tremendous amount of drug manufacturing happening in White Bear, but there was a tremendous amount of drugs being transported through White Bear, whether it's on 35, whether it's on 694, whether it's on White Bear Avenue or the like. North St. Paul, just strategically located as a through point between Wisconsin and the metro area, along with a couple of cities along 94, is a direct route.
Thank you.
I was just curious, how this came together now? Has it just been an increase in the violent crime recently that we've seen, or how did you guys come to this point, having this come together?
Sure, good question. So last year, when we sent a good portion of our agents over to the city of Minneapolis, we obviously learned real quick, like, we're not just here to help the city of Minneapolis, like, crime's transient in Minnesota, right? It travels from jurisdiction to jurisdiction, and a shooting that occurs in Minneapolis, maybe the people live in Maplewood or Oakdale or Woodbury or wherever that is. This group had such big success in that area, meaning the Hennepin County and Ramsey County areas, that we had huge support from the governor's office. This was a legislative request for us last year. Part of that legislative request was for this specific task force, knowing that if we replicate and multiply what we did last year, these numbers that you see here are just going to go up exponentially across Minnesota. And taking that amount of firearms, making that amount of arrests, taking that amount of drugs off the street just simply saves lives. That amount of fentanyl pills alone, that could be 144,692 overdoses in Minnesota that were saved just by taking those off the street. Now, those of us in the law enforcement world know sometimes narcotics or the narcotics cases are sometimes never-ending. Like, you could continue to work those, and the suppliers will continue to supply. That's why we go after things along with that, whether it's guns, homicides, shootings, like I talked about before. Having said that, that is a large amount of drugs taken off the street by 12 people in about 13 months. Having said that, when this went through the legislative process, they asked a lot of those questions, like, how are you going to find people that you're going to go after? In other words, what we don't want is somebody walking down the street with a marijuana joint, and now you have a task force after this person. I'm not worried about those people. Those people are not the type of people that are doing drive-by shootings in our communities right now. We have plenty of other people and organizations to go after for that. Part of that is getting that information. Our criminal intelligence analysts, our fusion center, and then also the intelligence that we're getting out of our laboratory, meaning with our NIBIN system, with DNA, working with our federal partners, is how we're going to focus in on what groups or individuals to go after. Looking at that approach, I think, is why the legislature liked it. Part of that is the accountability of it. In other words, the BCA is accountable to the legislature for this group, not the task force members. Part of the way we set up and structured this unit is, and you've seen from other task forces, is we have the BCA running this task force. Part of that is policies and procedures that go along with it. Not that we always do things the best in the world, because we don't. We make mistakes like everybody else, but I think we have a pretty good track record on why we do certain things and how we do them, and then policies to back those up as well. One of the small things, and I don't mean to get into the weeds on a lot of this for you, I know you have other things to make decisions on, but it's body cameras. We're strong believers in body cameras. The BCA is actually going to issue every single person on this unit a body camera, regardless of if they have a body camera from their own agency. Policies, we're huge on policies. We do things a very, very safe way. Not that I want to jinx anything, but I can talk about our use of force stats at the BCA for about the last 10 years. We've had about 3 use of force incidences where we've used any force on somebody over the last 10 years. 10 years. We catch people and apprehend people on a daily basis. We do search warrants by the dozen, sometimes week by week. We do them in a very safe and effective manner. We're more than willing sometimes to let people go just to catch them again another day, as long as it's safe for the community and safe for the people that are working there.
I have a question for Chief Babenroth. That requires one of our officers to kind of leave our area. How do you see the process of hiring when there is a shortage?
Yeah, no, that's a great question, and stark reality for every law enforcement agency in the state. Thankfully, we've had a posting out for a while, so we do have a pool of applicants in there right now. So we would be able to hire one of them, and our posting is constantly open. So we're not shutting down any potential future applicant that we might be able to hire if the situation presents itself. So we are in a pretty good place. We're actually full to staffing right now for this moment in time, fully funded to our current complement of 20, thanks to your support to get us the second investigator for 2024, and we have all 20 officers right now, so we're in a pretty good place.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you to the BCA for coming out here. I also think this is a fantastic opportunity for career development and building skill sets. So thank you for the presentation.
Thank you.
All right,
Thanks, everybody.
appreciate it.
Thank you for
Appreciate
the
it.
work.
Nothing further?
So moved?
Councilmember Cole. Second, Councilmember Norby. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. We got 28 minutes.